So, today we have another Matt's Mailbox, the series where you guys send in your questions and I do my best to answer them. Now in the last episode we got crazy support, over 300 questions, so it took some time to go through and select the best ones. But as you guys know, if you want to get your question answered in the next episode, all you have to do is leave those down in the comment section below. So the first question today comes in from Kill Street Gaming, and he asks, Matt, what do you think about DICE making a scavenger mode for Battlefield 4? Well, we first saw Scavenger Mode introduced with the Aftermath DLC, so pretty late on in the life cycle of Battlefield 3, the second to last DLC to be released. Now, just as we see with the DLCs in Battlefield 4, alongside new maps and new weapons, we usually received 1 or 2 new game modes. Some of the ones I can think of off the top of my head, we saw Conquest Domination with Close Quarters, which later became Domination in Battlefield 4. We also saw Gunmaster, which still hasn't made a return yet in Battlefield 4. We saw Air Superiority and Capture the Flag with Endgame, and we saw Tank Superiority with Armored Kill. So throughout the life cycle of Battlefield 3, we did see a number of new game modes introduced. Now, I think it's fair to say that some of those game modes were definitely much more successful than others. I think things like Capture the Flag, people were very excited to see that back in the game, but it never worked quite as well as people were hoping. And things like Air Superiority and Tank Superiority weren't game modes that ever really took off. Now, the most successful game modes have probably got to be Conquest Domination with the Close Quarters DLC. That was always a very active game mode that even still now, if you join those servers, you will always find very busy and very populated servers. And probably in second place has got to be Scavenger Mode. Now, for me, Scavenger Mode was a personal favourite. Now, for any of you guys who maybe didn't play Battlefield 3 or didn't have the DLCs for that game, Scavenger Mode was very similar to old school mode you would see in other first-person shooters. So, rather than starting off with a weapon of choice, you would begin with a secondary weapon, any pistol you wanted, and then you would find other primary weapons laying around the map, very similar to the pick-up-only weapons we see in Battlefield 4. They would come with very limited ammunition, but there would be some ammo crates laying around the map, so if you wanted to stick with a certain gun, you could choose to take the risk and try and get some extra ammunition. Now, the great thing about that game mode, of course, meant it was very even. You didn't see a lot of players, especially in Battlefield 3, just running around with the M16A3. In fact, I don't think the M16A3 was a weapon of choice, so that was one of the reasons I did enjoy that game mode so much. It was very popular because you didn't see overpowered weapons being used by every player in the server. Now, the great thing about Scavenger Mode, it actually allowed you to use weapons you may not use in normal circumstances. So it allowed you to change up your playstyle, try and improve as a player, but also it made you become a more rounded player and have better ability with different weapons. I think there was a real skill to Scavenger Mode to be able to pick up any different weapon in the map and try and adapt your playstyle and the way you moved around the map to suit that weapon. So it was actually a pretty skilled game mode that if you could become a master of a whole range of different weapons, you could be very successful. And of course, it allowed you to unlock equipment and level up different weapons that you may not usually use. So I was a massive fan of Scavenger Mode. In fact, for a long time it was the only game mode I played on the Aftermath DLC. So is it something I would like to see return in Battlefield 4? Most definitely. I think it would actually fit in pretty well. Of course, we've got Dragon's Teeth and then the Final Stand DLC, and there are rumours Final Stand could be a nuclear war DLC, or there could have been some kind of nuclear battle. So it's pretty similar to the idea we saw with Aftermath, that maybe there's some soldiers abandoned in an area that's been hit by a nuclear strike and they don't have any proper equipment. So the idea of bringing back Scavenger Mode could actually fit in with the Final Stand DLC, and it would be something I'd be very excited to see. Now, the second question for today comes in from Corey Levison, and he asks, which weapons have you used the most and why? Now, I thought I'd go through my 3 most used weapons, starting from third place and moving into first place. So, my third most used weapon is the L85A2. Now, of course, that is the British assault rifle in the bullpup configuration, and one of the reasons I enjoy this weapon so much is the fact that it is a British assault rifle. It's a weapon you don't see in many first-person shooters. I was very excited when we first saw it in Battlefield 3 with Back to Karkand, and I was pretty stoked when we saw it come out with, I think, the China Rising DLC. Now, it's a cool weapon, it's very good at medium to long range, and in Battlefield 4 I have started to play things like Conquest and Conquest Large a lot more than I did on Battlefield 3, so having a weapon that has that accuracy at medium to long range is something you do need when playing those bigger game modes. So the L85A2, it packs a punch, very accurate at range, and does have a great rate of fire. Of course, being a bullpup weapon does mean it has a bit of a slower reload, so it's not a great weapon for close range, but on big maps it can be very effective. Now moving on to the second spot, we have the AWS. Now, I've done a video on this before for you guys. For me, it's probably one of the best weapons in the game. Since it first came out, now it has had a few nerfs a little bit, its stats have been changed around, and for me, it's still very, very effective. Now, the reason I enjoy this weapon so much is because in Battlefield 3, I was a massive support player fan. I loved the M249. Now, of course, in Battlefield 4, you have to complete the campaign to unlock the M249, and it's just something I haven't had time to do yet. Every time I sit down and think, you know what, I'll play some campaign, I end up just playing the multiplayer because, of course, it's much more enjoyable, so I still haven't unlocked the M249. So the AWS is a very similar weapon. For me, it feels very similar to the stats we saw with the M249 in Battlefield 3. And of course, it's got a very quick reload, 100-round magazine, and it's very, very accurate and usable. So for me personally, that is probably going to be in the top spot very, very soon. It's a very effective weapon, and I do have great fun using it. So moving on to the hotspot, my number one most used weapon, which I must admit I'm a little bit ashamed is my most used gun. It is the Ace 23, which is now kind of seen as the OP gun, the M16A3 of Battlefield 4. Now, I must admit I haven't used that weapon for a very long time now. The main reason that's in my number one spot is when the game first came out, of course, I was trying to grind out as many weapons and as many levels as possible to try and show you guys some stuff for the game. And it's got to be said, that weapon was very effective at taking out targets and allowing you to have the advantage. So for a long time, I did just depend on the Ace 23, and it is a very good gun. Some guys do have some kind of hostility towards that weapon due to just how popular it is, but it can't be denied. It's a very great gun. It's very effective if you want to kind of use it for anything from close range right the way out to kind of medium to long range. It is a very multi-use weapon. It's great for practically every map in the game. So I can see why it is my most used weapon, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably the most used weapon from a lot of you guys out there. So in the comments below, I want to hear from you. Which is your top 3 weapons and why? That'd be pretty cool to hear your response down in the comments below. And of course, if you guys want to get your questions answered in the next episode, don't forget to leave those down in the comments as well. But in the meantime, guys, if you did enjoy this video, please hit like. It does massively support the channel and this video. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.